Good Saturday morning, everybody. It is your buddy Choppadong. I'm coming at you with a quick review of the week today in this video. Really and truly, I just want to show you guys. I was thinking about making this VIP only for a little bit, and then I decided, you know what, why not release it to the public? Because I want everybody out there to see what it is we do inside DFS Army. This is one-stop shopping for daily fantasy sports. You hear me talk a lot of baseball, but we have coaches in golf and NASCAR and everything teaching all of those sports as well. One of the unique ways we've started teaching this past week, and we've done it from time to time, but I've teamed up with CashKeg, and we've started competing in head-to-head lineups. And I didn't show, I guess I could go to the dfsarmy.com Twitter. So I apologize for the delay. I thought I had it called up on my own Twitter. You can follow me at Choppadong. The DFS Army Twitter here shows Keg's lineup last night, my lineup last night, whereas mine won a 100-man league and produced, whatever, 5x or on my total entry fees of the night, but 25x in the actual lineup. Keg's produced almost 2x, but it was 1,300 real dollars. So, you can live on a smaller ROI playing cash games if you got a larger bankroll and a bigger budget and can produce real dollars. So there's two different ways to skin a cat. Whether you're a big bankroll guy, a small bankroll guy, it doesn't matter. We can teach you how to become a better player. You go down to the comment section, click dfsarmy.com. Of course, join through the link, use the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, and trigger that 20% off discount. But what we really want to talk about today is recap these contests and why. What's going on here? What's the real deal? So if I kick into the first contest here by Keg, I want to show you this, and then I want to show you why the philosophies differ in my opinion. Okay, the first night we played, I had a score of 72. Keg blew me away with 214. Matt Boyd got caught up in the weather. You probably remember that earlier in the week. And I ran a very non-stacked lineup, a very cash-type lineup. And the major difference in this lineup, I mean, it didn't exactly turn out to be Charlie Morton's 60-point swing, although that didn't help. It, for the longest time, was actually the Brandon Lau 35 points. I mean, yeah, I got a couple here, but he had the same players, so those two offset. And this turned into 90 some odd points, which is 160, which I still didn't compete very well with the rest of my lineup, where he got a couple of them down here as well, and that was the end of that. But two non-stacked lineups, he chose better players than I did. C'est la vie. We move on to the next game. If I can find the second night, I did a little bit more of a hybrid type of build. And I'll tell you why here kind of towards the end of the video. But Keg is a very, very good player. He's going to establish a very high floor. That's a low score for him. He used Chris Sale, which was standard. I used Kyle Gibson, which if you were going to be cheaper, was also a cash viable type of play. Where I tried to do, I knew it was risky, of course, and I just went into Coors. And I loaded up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bats, chalky bats at that, a little bit safer playing the chalk, but I went overboard on the chalk in hopes that I sacrificed in my pitcher. I looked at Chris Sale, a low night for him, 30, 35 points. A good night for Kyle Gibson was upwards of 45, about top end there. And I thought if I can catch one of those nights where Chris Sale has a subpar night and Kyle Gibson has a decent night, that's really all that should matter, because the difference is it buys me Coors, where when you were paying up for Chris Sale, you couldn't get into Coors with more than about 1 or 2 bats. Whereas when you bought in with a Coors stack or Coors games first and then took a lower priced pitcher, yes, bats are more fluky than arms. This lineup bears that out. Coors fell flat, and I suffered. That was a close competition because Chris Sale didn't have a Chris Sale night. If Chris Sale has 50 points, then I get torched again by 40 points. And that's kind of the idea, is even though Chris Sale had an off night, pick the rest of your bats, you did okay. You didn't need Coors to do it because Coors fell flat. Now, if Coors went for 17 combined runs, I smoke them. Those are the choices that we're making. And being chalky choices on both sides, it's not the worst. It's not the end of the world. Now, next, we go into last night. We took 4th of July off. We'll probably play tonight. We took last night off, and I went pretty much. Now, I said, and this is where I'm really leading up to with the evolution of the game, is this is a difference in philosophies that he and I will have, and we will probably debate this back and forth quite a bit, and hopefully members really, really learn from this, because I believe very, very strongly in what I've learned over the few years, and Keg is a very, very textbook player, which is probably the way you should be teaching, but I have found a way to teach smaller bankroll people to leverage their bankrolls, and in my case, being a hobby, have more fun doing it too, with being able to stack and not having to take the most expensive pitcher all the time. Not that Keg takes them all the time, but not have to take the most expensive pitcher all the time and then really hamper your bats and then go hunting value all over the place and whatever. And that's a good way to play. It's a high floor way to play, and that's how you play cash games. And don't get me wrong, Keg plays tournaments too, and he takes a lot of risk in those. I tend to blend both styles together and play cash games and tournaments kind of at the same time, and then scatter my lineups from, not head to heads, but 50-50s, triple up, quintuple up, 100-man leagues, 10-man leagues, 3-man, 5-man leagues, stuff like that, where I'm scattered about with the same lineup because I don't know if that lineup is going to produce a score of 110 and maybe eke into the cash in the 50-50s, or if it's going to produce a score of 210 and blow everything away outside of the deeper, larger GPPs. So I scatter that lineup through. It's what I call the ladder structure or the ladder concept, and I'll include the link at the bottom of the video for those that have never seen it. But it basically is teaching you a safer style of GPP play. Yes, it's going to be up and down. Yes, it's going to be more boom or bust. The reason behind it for me is I can tackle those 100-man leagues, and when I do well in the 100-man leagues, I blow cash away. And if you can get to where you can consistently get up into those 100-man leagues and get up into the top, say, 20 to 30% of the world and consistently do that, then you're also going to be destroying cash games. And in a highly correlated sport like baseball or hockey, stacking, in my opinion, is fine. It's a little bit more risky, but when you spread out with such fluky bats anyway, you really, the correlation really uses those teams trying to nut those offenses that go off for the night and get as many bats from them as you can. Baseball's boom or bust, even if you spread out and don't do much anyway. If you don't do a lot of stacking anyway, baseball's boom or bust. So if it's going to be a boom or bust game, in my opinion, you might as well play for the boom. And you miss, you're going to bust a lot anyway. You miss with those cash games. Go ahead and throw those in, those 50-50s and whatnot, with a few, you may not stack as much. Like I went full 4 on 3 yesterday. That was pretty strong. But they were chalky offenses. Boston, you can see here with Vasquez, Devers, Bogarts, JD Martinez went flat out 2, 3, 4, 5 stack. And Erod is a pitcher that I use a lot for these types of lineup builds because he's usually in that low 8K range on FanDuel, and he's got upside to 40 or 50 points. He also is going to bust a little bit more often, but I'm okay with that. I don't know how you typically play personally, but I'm okay with having some bust nights because I'm going to get the reward of the good nights where I win 100-man leagues and return $25 on the dollar. I went into Minnesota as well. The weather was a little bit dicey, but went into Minnesota as well, another chalky offense, and took the bottom of the order there. Marwin Gonzalez was too cheap, had him in the 5-hole, of course, and then turned around and went 8-9 with Scope and Buxton, who both were in great matchups. If you follow me in looking at the research station, they both had ISO on ISO matchups. The pitcher was giving up a lot of power. These guys had a lot of power to that side of the plate or to that side of the arm, and they performed great. JD Martinez, of all people, was the one that I was counting on in the lineup to do pretty well, and he was actually one of the worst ones there. I did not like Teoscar in the 9-hole. But you look over here at the lineup here, I was considering Nate Lau, or Lowe, however you pronounce his name. I know Brandon Lau's different. You've got some leadoff hitters here in Sogard, in Jose Martinez, who's been fine lately. Very, very cheap. Chris Taylor goes up to the top. Victor Reyes leads off. This is a very, very cash textbook build. High-priced pitcher, high-floor pitcher, had a good game. And then a bunch of cheap hitters that are in the leadoffs that get multiple at-bats. The more at-bats they get, the more opportunities they get to score points. You get 6 or 9 points or so out of them. Maybe you get lucky. One of them pops off for a home run. And I don't mean lucky meaning in the absence of skill. I mean get lucky on that night where he happens to barrel a ball and put it over the fence. And what you end up with is a very, very high score of yourself on a very, very... Now, my lineup might fluctuate between 210 and 130 or 110. But on the nights that it gets me the 210, it really pays off. It sweeps my head-to-heads. It wins the 50-50s, the 100-man leagues, triple-ups, whatever, and it pays off in multiplier format. Now, if I was just playing this lineup in head-to-heads and triple-ups, I'm going to return 2 to 3x tops, more like 2.25 to 2.5 times my buy-in. And that $7 into $14 is great if that's your budget, but $700 into $1,300, $1,400 like Keg did is the smart way to play with a bigger budget like that. You want to preserve that money. You don't want to expose that money to the ups and downs. I don't mind taking a shot at turning $5 into $25. I would not be trying to turn $500 into $2,500 this way. I'd be trying to turn $500 into $900, $1,200, and try and do that every single night. So there are different strokes for different folks, different ways to build, different ways to discuss how to attack this industry of daily fantasy sports and this hobby. And I think that Keg and I are going to show you, VIPs anyway, how to go about doing that through the next couple of weeks here when we compete head to head and we discuss our lineups, we discuss the strategies behind it, we discuss why we chose the players that we chose. And what you're going to notice is even though I'm going to be taking risk to get over him, I'm going to be doing it in a chalky way. I'm going to be taking the chalk stacks. I'm going to be taking some of the safer players. I'm just going to be going overboard on it, where Keg is going to spread out and mitigate his risk through his lineup and play a very straight cash style. I'm going to show you that I may not beat him 50-60% of the time. I may win 30-35% of the time, but being that I'm parlaying that into other contests, into other multipliers, my ROI is going to be profitable as well. So it's going to come down to which way would you rather play. And we can coach you both styles in the DFS Army. We can do it with NASCAR, we can do it with PGA, we can do it with any of the sports that you want to play. So again, I'm going to recommend that you jump in here and join us, dfsarmy.com, and use that coupon code CHOP. One more thing I'm going to show you. The reason why I'm taking chances and I'm taking risks is because I just drew this up this morning, this evolution graph. What I believe in the history of DFS, back 4 or 5 years ago, people generally didn't know how to play. They were taking unnecessary risks. They were being crazy. They were really just stacking their favorite teams and hoping for the best. And people quickly figured out that you didn't need to take a lot of risk if you played ultra safe. The 50-50, let's say in a 100-man 50-50, the meat of the curve here that would hit the 50-50 line, let's say this is down around 110 points. Okay? Because most people were scoring in the 80s and 90s. And then, yeah, there were some in the 120s, 140s, 150s, whatever, but there were fewer than the guys that were, taking a lot of risk and falling short and just generally building bad lineups. So this meat of this curve was back here at, say, the 110 mark. Today, I believe that through education sites like ours, through education of general, all of the internet and everything that is out there, this curve has shifted to the right, and the score of 110 is no longer winning your 50-50s and your head-to-heads. It's taking more like 130. So to get past this number, you either need to be very, very good at your cash game builds and be getting into the 130s, 140s, 150s consistently, or you need to take some risk. And taking some risk is going to lead to busting more often, but it's also going to lead to a little bit more getting past that meat of that curve and getting into those triple ups, quintuple ups, and whatever else that is going to pay you the multipliers that should, in theory, make up for the times that you fall short. So as the evolution of the game tends to slide that line further and further and further to the right, 110, 120, 130, 140, where you have to be more and more and more perfect. In order to jump that line, you're going to need to take risk, which means you're going to need to evolve into more of a multiplier, more of a big league, more of a small GPP type of player. The cash games, as we lose fish and we lose the complete droolers, because they either are getting smarter, quitting playing, or they're going to line up sellers who are at least modestly competent and just duplicating those lineups where you run 10 head-to-heads and 5 of them have the same lineup. They're going to pose their own little challenge, and they're not going to be down here in the 110 range. They're going to be up here, and they're going to continue to get tougher and tougher. So personally, I believe the evolution of the game is to take a little bit more risk and leapfrog. The other thing I would say, instead of head-to-heads, I'm not a big fan of taking on large volume head-to-heads, 20, 30, 40, 50 head-to-heads, and then I need to build, for me to sweep 20, or for me to sweep 50 head-to-heads, I need to build a lineup that beats 49 people. That is a top 2% lineup across the industry. And to do that, I need to build with some risk, with some upside. I need to forego some of the floor. And in a correlated high boomer bust sport like baseball is anyway, the game naturally lends to that. That's why I've shifted that way. That's why I build my lineups that way. If you identify with me, then maybe you come and look me up as a coach. If you're very, very cash safe and you want to play the ultimate textbook safe route, then Keg is your coach. And both of us can be successful. Both styles of people can be successful. It just matters on which side you want to learn to build, which side you want to add to your game. And you do that by joining dfsarmy.com. So wrap it up, like and subscribe to the video. Throw me some notifications at the end there where you guys get notified every time a new video drops to your phone. And of course, consider coming inside using the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, and discussing these types of lineups with us. I can leave you with our discussion last night all the way through us discussing our lineups back and forth, showing some tracking numbers, showing a whole bunch of ideas as well as our results, showing people that we're putting our money where our mouth is in effort to teach you to become a better player. Hopefully you guys like that. Hopefully you guys come inside and check us out. I am Chapadong. I'm out of here. We'll see you next week when Keg and I continue with a little bit more of the head-to-head challenge stuff to teach you guys to become better players. Take care.